Good morning. Today I'm going to talk about the book Extreme Risk by Chris Hunter, QGM, Queen's Gallantry Medal. Now, Chris Hunter previously wrote the book 8 Lives Down, which was about a very detailed look at his career in bomb disposal in Iraq. The present book is a complete overview of his military service right from the start right through to the end. So he doesn't revisit the Iraq episodes very much, but there's a bit included there as well. He joined the army at the age of 16 as a private, and then a few years later went the route to be an officer and goes to Sandhurst. And there's quite a bit at the beginning of the book, and this is the book, about Sandhurst, and you can sum it up by there's really extreme fatigue, lots of exercises out in the cold and the wet to recreate the operational environment, and secondly the DS, the directing staff, who are all senior NCOs, are majors and stuff, who have the most withering sarcasm and are able to deliver incisive insults in the most comedic turn of phrase. He is commissioned as a young troop officer and goes off to Sarajevo, and he starts learning leadership mainly from his troop sergeant, and how to really inspire respect and win over the confidence of the men. And while in this terrible civil war in the former Yugoslavia, there's a lot of material in there working on basically what is a UN tour. But the most horrific thing is when the guys all decide to have a dip in a lake, and one of the locals in a panic informs them that it's full of dead bodies, including women who tied heavy objects to themselves, baby in arms, jumped in to kill themselves rather than face the privations of being captured by the enemy. Subsequent tour with his troop is to Northern Ireland, and while there he witnesses the work of the ATOs, the ammunition technical officers, and this inspires him to apply for that branch. And then he successfully applies, and he goes on the first 8-month-long course to be an ATO, ammunition technical officer, which mainly focuses on conventional ammunition and explosive ordnance disposal, but does have a module dealing with the defeat of IEDs, improvised explosive devices. And he talks about the training, about the exercises, all the procedures they have to go through, and really the mindset of the operator in an EOD role, which to most of us, myself included, is a type of bravery and courage that is totally off the scale and is beyond our comprehension. He is then posted to an EOD unit operating in Kent, Shorncliffe Barracks, and one of his first tasks really is to go to a lorry park where a lorry containing dozens of drums of chemicals, the chemicals are cooking off and exploding, and he has to open them up using the tools of the EOD trade. And just as a interesting side note, this obviously is a large part of the story. These sophisticated devices, disruptors, that were developed mainly by the British, or almost exclusively by the British, in the early days of the IRA conflict, which fire usually a jet of water or gel into the device and blow it apart faster than the detonating cycle. And so he talks about the use of various types of disruptor, hot rods and flying scalpel weapons and so on, all have their particular role. He then attends the high threat operators course, which is a prerequisite to serving in Northern Ireland. He passes that successfully and is indeed posted to the province, and deals with a lot of car bombs and other suspect devices there. Again, quite a nerve-wracking episode, and lots and lots of detail, and very, very interesting. One of the things about working in that environment is that you are observed all the time. You're in either rural or urban areas where, okay, there is a cordon in place, but you quite often are overlooked by buildings or hills, and the terrorists will be watching you. So they watch your procedures with a view to creating a device that will counter your procedures, and they're waiting for also any mistakes, any lapses where you use the same staging point more than once, and this kind of thing. And this was invaluable experience for later on in the war on terror, where similarly in Iraq and Afghanistan the operators would be observed, and their procedures had to be both immaculate and also have built in a degree of flexibility, so they could never be totally predictable. After that, he goes to the training centre at Kinnerton, and he goes through the high threat manual IED defeat course, which is the pinnacle of the trade. And then following that, he is posted to Alpha Troop, which is a very secretive unit, which is the EOD component of Special Forces. And so he's based down in Hereford. He's working with SAS, doing a lot of training, a lot of exercises, and also doing similarly cooperation exercises with Special Forces and the police tactical firearms units. Things like going after suicide bombers and things like this. Not that much detail for obvious reasons, but it does give something of an insight into this very, very specialised role. Again, different types of devices are mentioned. Victim-operated IEDs, or booby traps as they're called, suicide devices, or not-so-smart bombs as they're called, all these different things, and how the terrorists will adapt any form of technology to use as a trigger. He is sent on a training trip to Colombia to help their guys, and straight away comes up against the macho attitude over there, where bravery is more important than correct procedures, and by trying to teach the guys how to successfully defeat various types of devices, the more senior officers are ridiculing them and saying, well, you just walk up and kick it apart, sort of thing. And there are tragic consequences to that later on. He is, oh, by the way, while he was at Alpha Troop down at Hereford, 9/11 happened. So that obviously a massive turning point. And then he is working in specialised departments at the Ministry of Defence in London, Whitehall, putting together information, researching the worldwide bomb threat in the Great War on Terror, when he's in work, he's in the office, and 7/7 kicks off, which is obviously several bombs go off on the underground and one on a bus. And he is called into Cobra, to the Cobra meeting, and he has his input into that, and it's a very tense time, obviously. Not long after that, he resigns from the army. One of the things he does is go to South Africa, and he takes the Ronin bodyguard course, which was run by Tim, an old friend of ours who was a graduate of our courses over in South Africa, and he's carried on the good work, and it's a very, very well thought of course, the Ronin course. He really, I would advise anyone who's seriously going into the business to take the Ronin course, because it covers all the aspects, firearms training, and also very high degree of medical training, hands-on. And so after that, he gets work in Helmand on protection jobs in Helmand province, and then later on starts his own consultancy, teaching overseas personnel who are approved by Her Majesty's government to be able to defeat terrorist devices. And he also starts writing, and that's where his first book, 8 Lives Down, came in to be published. Both books are terrific, really interesting life, awesome bravery, right off the scale to us mortals who just read this stuff and can do nothing else but wonder at the types of people who can do this on a daily basis. Fantastic books.